So thank you guys for logging on this morning. This is a really good turnout. This started out as an idea of the Education Committee to have an in-person sales workshop in May. And the original title of the workshop was After Prospecting, Now What? And in light of everything that has happened, we decided to turn it into an online workshop. And it really is intended to be a conversation. So I don't think Cori and I will spend a terribly long time on what we kind of already have prepared, because we do want to get to you guys, and we really want, I mean, Cori made the comment before everyone got on that she certainly doesn't think of herself as an expert in selling through a pandemic, and luckily none of us have ever had to do this before. So it's uncharted territory for all of us. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that slide?
Thank you all for joining us this morning.
So kind of when we sat down and talked about this, started putting some ideas together, we kind of talked about, you know, what has changed when it comes to sales during COVID-19. And kind of the answer we came up with is everything has changed and nothing has changed. We're still selling our product, but our product has changed. And so what we're selling has changed somewhat, and how we do that will change. So everything and nothing at the same time. Cori?
So I think that, just kind of piggybacking off that slide, I think it's really important to kind of recognize that we're not the only ones that are ready for things to kind of get back to quote unquote normal, whatever that new normal looks like. So, our clients want to hear from us, and they want to get back to a place where, they are buying and they are talking to you, because if we've done our job, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, if we've done our job as salespeople, as sales professionals, our clients are probably our friends as well. So it's important to, any outreach, maybe right now you don't feel comfortable in reaching out to them with a sales message, but it's still important that we're talking to them. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get through this, but always remember that you're that trusted person, especially those existing clients. It's a time for us to be able to connect them in a different way, on more of maybe a personal level, rather than just in our professional world. Beth, I don't know if you have anything to add on this slide.
No, I don't think so. So I kind of, what we did is we kind of looked at the steps of the sales cycle. And so, the first step is always prospecting. And as we kind of looked here at the Columbia CVB, moving forward with our sales process, once this is kind of moving back to normal, I was thinking about the step of prospecting, and where we're going to start prospecting in Columbia anyway is within our current client base, because we already have an established relationship with those people. They already know us. They're already familiar with our product. So it seems like it's kind of the low-hanging fruit, I guess you would say. But even within your established client base, we're sitting there and kind of triaging who's the most likely group that's most likely to start booking right away. So how do you prioritize where to start? Which of your clients or groups are the most likely to resume consuming your product first? So start with those, and then kind of work your way through. And Cori, what are you doing? Are you doing the same thing?
And I would, for those of you that I'm not with a CVB anymore, I'm with an attraction now with Worlds of Fun in Kansas City. So this is something that, I talked when Beth and I were preparing for this, one of the things we talked about was how different our sales cycle is from the days when I was in a CVB. So, we're doing the same thing. I know some of the folks on my team are actually on the call, and so they may have some things to add once we're all done. But one of the things that we right now are really doing is trying to figure out what do we do with the folks that are already on the books, because a lot of our folks from an attraction standpoint haven't canceled yet. Many of them have, but we're still looking at what do we do with the groups that are on the books. And I'm sure there are some of the CVBs that are also dealing with that, but we don't have the travel. So ours is very similar. Obviously, they're existing clients because they're on the books, but as far as the prospecting piece, you know, we also will go back to those people that have done business with us in the past. And we'll talk about, you know, later on really what that messaging looks like, because more than anything, anybody that was on the Division of Tourism call the other day, more than anything, all the clients, no matter who you work for, are going to want to know what you're doing to make sure that it's safe. So as you start prospecting, you know, that's, and Chuck, you can probably go to the next slide. As you start prospecting, you know, you want to make sure that you're prepared. And I think on a daily basis, I don't think I've said I don't know more in a 6-week period than I have in my entire life, as I have in the past 6 weeks, because it seems like every question that's asked, it just seems like it changes from day to day, maybe hour to hour, in some of the cases, and I'm sure many of you on the call can relate to that. So the one thing that I do think is important, you don't necessarily have to have all the answers to the questions, but it is good when you start to reach out that you're prepared and you know why you're reaching out. So a lot of the things that we have done as far as Worlds of Fun is concerned, and I know many, I've seen a lot of this on LinkedIn, you know, we always have a purpose with when we reach out. So of course, you know, the first few weeks we reached out, and with the business that we're in, we had lots of ideas on things kids could do from home with all these parents that are trying to be teachers as well as professionals. And so, you know, we were sending things for them to give to their kids to do, or, you know, we were sending out just emails that are just, you know, how are you? Because like I said earlier, I think it's just important to remember that these people, you know, they may not be friends that you hang out with on the weekends, but they're certainly people that, if we've done our job as sales professionals, they are people that trust us and know that if we reach out, it's real. So, you know, as you're preparing, I think as long as you know why you're reaching out and it's sincere, I don't think that there's any harm in reaching out to those people that you believe you have that kind of relationship with.
Yeah, I think kind of what Cori was saying too is you need to be prepared. In my previous years working in the hotel industry, I was fortunate enough that I got to go back and forth between sales and operations. And I think that having worked on the operations side made me a better salesperson, because I understood what the groups I put in the hotel, how they affected the operations side. So I think people are going to have a lot of questions. So you need to be prepared by knowing what you are doing, how you're operating differently, to make those people comfortable. The other thing is you are going to have to do some preparation before you reach out and learn as much as you can about that particular client situation now. You know, this has affected everyone differently. So you may have some clients who are no longer in business. You may have some who their budget was affected more than others. You may have some who have very, very minimal staff and tasks that they took on previously in preparation for bringing a group to you. You may have to share some of that workload with them now, or just kind of do some extra steps. They may have lost someone close to them. So this is totally different. I mean, when you get ready to reach out to them, you owe it to yourself and to them to know as much about their current situation as you can. And maybe that's just a little bit of Facebook stalking or reading newspapers, you know, from where they're located, or just anything you can kind of do. But the most important thing is, don't assume that everything in their world is the same as it was the last time you talked to them, and or last time you interacted with them, and just kind of tread carefully.
Yeah, and I think that also is maybe why that initial email, if you haven't already done that, of, you know, hey, how are things going? Because you may send the email and get a kickback that tells you they're not there anymore. You know, that you can gain a lot of information. I know that we had a group One of our account executives sent an email and got a kickback that the person that he had been talking to the week before was no longer there, and it gave the new contact name. So, you know, I don't think there's a perfect answer, but you know, even that initial outreach of just, hey, how you doing? Once you've done a little bit of research and maybe you can't figure it out, may get you some information that you need. So I think that, you know, I think that the preparation, obviously, that leads into the approach, and what kind of approach do you think will work with that particular client. Now, potential clients, you know, you may not know that, but again, if you can use that relationship and know what kind of approach is going to work with that person, whether they would respond to a, hey, how you doing email, or whether it needs to be something different, you know, I think that this might be something that you just kind of tailor to each one of your clients if you feel like if you feel like that's needed. We certainly, I don't think in this stage we're recommending any, I wouldn't recommend, and I know it's not something that we've done in particular, and maybe there are other sales professionals on here that have done it. I'd be interested to hear how it worked, but we're not doing any mass emails right now. Our approach is very personal, and it's one-off, and they're just simply emails. We've been very careful not to do anything that looks like marketing or anything like that. It isn't like we haven't had those conversations if the client's ready, but they will lead you down that path if they're ready.
Yeah, one thing that we kind of talked about was, before you reach out and make that contact, make sure you know what you have to talk about. Like, whether it's that you're talking to them about how they're doing, or if, you know, do you have something specific you want to share with them about what's happening in your world, what you're doing differently, but make sure that you know what you have to offer them and how you're going to find out what they need from you, and make it as personal as you can. I always have said that sales is more about listening than talking, and this is true, I think, now more than ever at this time. So make sure that you communicate with them any significant changes in your business, or the experience they might have when they visit you now compared to what they might be expecting based on previous visits, because there might be some things that you offered in the past that you can't anymore, or there might be, so that's going to be important to them when they're turning around and trying to make decisions about what they're going to do. We can have the next slide, Vanna. Thank you. Mainly, I think Cori and I have probably already touched on it, but not every client is going to have the same needs or will be able to utilize what you have to offer in the same way. So you need to kind of think about making your presentations as agile and specific to their needs as you can. And you're going to need to be creative when you're working with them and show that you're sensitive to their needs, and you have the willingness and ability to adjust what you're offering based on those needs. Cori, you got anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that, you know, again, if you've been in sales for any amount of time, you're going to get a feeling. You know, that was something that we talked about a lot. We actually have daily meetings still with our teams. We were, and so every morning at 9 o'clock, we have a quick check-in. This morning it lasted about 5 minutes. Yesterday it was like 2 hours. It just depends on the day. You know, I think that you're going to know in your gut kind of when it's time. This is, you know, I think you're going to know when it's time, and I think you're going to know what feels appropriate.
All right, so we've gotten to the very clever overcoming objections slide there. So, you know, it's a normal part of the sales cycle to overcome objections. But in this market, I think the most important thing that you can do is help your clients sell their audience on your product, because they may have some initial concerns, but then depending on what type of client they are, who they have in their audience base is they're going to have to then turn and communicate your message to the people they want to bring with you, or with them to your place. So everyone's going to have different concerns about safe travel activities.
So I think that, in a CVB, I know that it's more difficult because you don't own anything really. You're kind of at the mercy of everybody. But one of the things that, we've been really working on is just trying to get creative in ways that people can still come to the park if they feel comfortable. How can we allow them to do that? So for example, one of the things that we have no idea what it's going to look like, and I actually have a call later today to try to start figuring that out, is what does a catered event look like? And, I have no idea what that looks like. And anybody that's ever been to Worlds of Fun in particular, we do have an open air facility in our pavilions, which helps, but we also learned on that call earlier this week that the level of comfortability was about the same as far as an indoor facility versus an outdoor facility. I think it was like 70% and 63%. So I'm not sure how much, I don't know how much that'll play into it, but it's a all of ours are buffets. So, you can't have people touching the spoons, you have to have somebody serving them. You have to have people that are, maybe 50% of the capacity is normal. So, being creative and trying to help your client talk through what's going to work. So for us, we have the ability that if they don't want to do a big catered event, we can make, their tickets fit any day, and they can still do something nice for their clients, but maybe they just come with their family on a day whenever they want to, and so the tickets are just good any day throughout the season. So, for just thinking about creative ways, going, kind of back to that first slide, everything's changed, nothing's changed. It's the same product. So, nothing's really changed there, but everything has changed in how we're going to deliver that product to someone. So when you overcome objections or even start to overcome objections, I think a lot of that is going to be being able to work with your client and go, what is really important to you? Is it right now that you don't want to promote a big gathering because it just seems like that's just inappropriate, but you still want to do something nice for your folks? Then maybe let's work on that. What does that look like? We have started working, yesterday we started working through a plan to maybe let them have good any day tickets this year, and then next year, if they sign for 2021, we'll lock in this price for them, that kind of thing. So I don't know from a CVB perspective, when it's appropriate to start working with I know all the hoteliers, my heart just goes out to so many of the hoteliers, even here in Kansas City. Our largest hotel, Marriott downtown, has been closed since the beginning of April. And we don't know when that's going to open back up. We have a brand new Lowe's that's waiting to open, which we don't know when that's opening. But, when the time feels right, as a city, probably going to have to get really creative and work with the hotels and even the attractions and the, in our case, our big convention center in Kansas City, and figure out what that package looks like. Because I was on a call the other day and somebody said, we're all going to be fighting for the same business. And that's very true. So even though right now it feels really inappropriate to even be thinking about it, I think that price and creativity and different ways to package your destinations and your product, I think, are going to be key in trying to overcome some of these.
So yes, keep calm and close the sale. So I think closing is going to look different than it usually does. I think that contracts are going to change, are going to be looked at so many different times, so many different ways. Cancellation policies might need to be adjusted. Time frame for this step, I think you can expect it to be extra long. And then on all honesty, I think that you're going to see kind of a blending of the overcoming objections and the closing cycle, because I think as you go through that closing, different things are going to occur to people, and you're going to have to go cycle back around to handling those objections. And then again, between the time you close the sale and the actual delivery, like when they're actually coming to spend their time with you, there may be other things that have changed, because this situation changes so frequently. So I would say you'll have to check in with them on a regular basis to kind of reassure them and see how they're doing, and also communicate any things that have changed in how you're doing business or how they're doing business. So it's going to look very different. I'm going to go back and just touch on something that Cori was talking about reopening and everyone kind of competing for the same business. We had a call with our hotels yesterday, and we've been doing, as a CVB, we've been doing weekly check-ins with all our hotels, but this was the first time we had all of them together in the same place. And one of the things that we kind of talked about is in opening back up, during this pandemic, the CVB has kind of switched our focus to promoting our tourism product locally or internally, like to our citizens. Here's how to continue to shop safely. Here's how to continue to enjoy restaurants and cocktails and outdoors and things like that. And we feel like a lot of people are going to stick closer to home when they travel. I know, Cori, you had made the comment that you're really looking at marketing or selling to Kansas City more heavily than you have in the past. And so, we're saying that we think that people are going to travel from maybe 50 to 100 miles. And so hotels are asking us for ways to help them promote staycations or local vacations. And so if they do come to Columbia and stay in a hotel, how can they enjoy Columbia in a safe way? Where are some outdoor places they can go? How can they enjoy a meal? So that's kind of where we're going to look at turning our focus to. Anything else, Cori?
Yep.
All right. So following up, I think is going to be really important from closing to the time they visit, but also afterwards. I think that's going to be really important because you want to know after they were actually at your business, whatever it is, or in your destination, what was their experience actually like? Were all of those communications that you had and all of those precautions you've taken, did they work? How was their visit perceived? I think you're going to want to know for your own protection, that will help you. That feedback will help you if they're honest with you to make any changes you need to know. And it will also help you as you're going forward and you're working with other clients. If you can kind of relate, we've had these visits and, this is kind of what we've learned. So
yeah, one of the things that we talked about the other day, I was on the phone, and it's been a long time. I haven't been in the hotels for a while, but even in the CVB world, it felt like that pre-con, post-con. When I was at Visit KC, there wasn't as much of that, because people didn't just jump on a video call. I think I could count on one hand the amount of times I've been on a video call until 6 weeks ago, and now I'm on multiple every day, which I'm sure all of you feel the same way. And so I think the communication, I suggested the other day for our park to figure out a way to do some sort of informational video, taking people, even if it's just a GoPro. I also think the days of this video conference and the fact that we're all working from home, it isn't weird to hear a kid in the background or a dog in the background. I think we've gotten a little more comfortable with everything not being as polished. And I certainly don't want you to think that the days of being a professional are out the window, but I do think that right now people are going to be a lot more forgiving because, they don't necessarily need shiny video that you have some video production company come out and do a video as to why your destination is safe. But because in our instance, we may use a GoPro and take people around the park and show them, these are the things we've done, and this is what you can experience when you get to the park, and this is what the float's going to look like, and this is what it's going to look like when, you're parking and you're coming in, and security and all those kind of things. And, that's something that if it's quick, they can send that to every attendee that is coming via email, whatever. That way that your FAQ, you kind of bring it to life. And, it helps them visualize that you have thought about this and this is what that looks like. So I think communication more than anything, once we finally get some of this stuff nailed down, because I will tell you from an amusement park standpoint, we're basically writing the guidelines. We're working with the people that and sending them, you know, to people that are working with the CDC and all that kind of stuff, because we've never had to think of it this way before. And once we get those in place, it's going to be really important to communicate that. So, you know, the other way to look at follow-up is, you know, making sure you are giving your clients the information they need to sell whatever you're trying to get them to buy, to show the people that they're trying to convince that they've thought about it, that they've asked the right questions, and here's what they can expect when they come to your destination or your facility, or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yep, it's all about relationships. Sales has always been about relationships, and the best salespeople are always the people that are looked upon as valuable resources. So I think, if nothing else, be honest in your conversations. If you don't think that it's in that person or their group's best interest to do business with you in the time frame they're considering, tell them that up front. Give them a better option. Or if you think there's a safer way for them to visit your destination by changing up activities or changing the number in their group, tell them that as well. They'll appreciate your honesty, and they will realize that you really are looking out for them, and then they'll return that loyalty to you many times over. So, and I know Cori touched on earlier, don't be afraid if you don't know. I mean, if you don't know something, you don't know it, but you can find out. Don't make stuff up.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, I think this is a time, you know, yes, honesty, candor, all those things, integrity. You know, I think this is a time when we have the opportunity to be a partner to our clients in a totally different way. If they ask you a question you know the answer to, great. Thankfully, they asked the question so that we can find the answer, because they guarantee you there's somebody right behind them that's going to ask the same question. We're not going to think of everything. I mean, how in the world, you know, as a CVB, or Megan, you know, as a state, I mean, how in the world are we ever going to think of everything that somebody, when you're promoting a state or a city, or, you know, even an amusement park that's 235 acres, you know, there's just, you're not going to think of everything, and that's okay. You know, let them be a partner, bring them into those conversations, and let them help figure that out. I think that it just, you know, there's a silver lining to everything. And I believe that in a situation like this, people want to know that you're their partner. They want to know that you're being honest. They want to know that you're going to bring them in, and that you're going to keep them informed as things change, you know, because they will. If, you know, they need to know that they can call you with the craziest questions. Even, you know, I know it, you know, in a CVB, you may be planning something for 2 years down the road. I mean, I can't even imagine how much of things are going to change between now and when somebody comes in 2022. You know, and that even goes for groups that are on the books right now. So those conversations, you know, once you're ready to have those conversations, making sure that, you know, kind of going back to follow-up, we've got to go back to every client that's on the books, catch them completely up, possibly lower prices, depending on what kind of product we open with and when we open. But that's just okay. You know, I think as the best salespeople have always had integrity and honesty and been upfront with their clients. But I think that transparency right now is going to be absolutely key to get anybody to trust you enough to work with you. So
I think that's the last slide, is it not?
It is. That pretty much wraps it up.
So now we're going to open up to you guys and see what your thoughts are, or if anybody has questions or examples they want to share, or don't everybody talk at once.
Yeah, because like I said, we've never sold through a global pandemic again. This is just kind of what we're, or before, I mean, this is just kind of what we're gathering from the last 6 weeks.
Hey, it's Mary Supple. I have a question. How important do you think, or how often do you think visitors will be asking how many positive cases, how many recovered cases, that kind of information?
That's a really good question. I'd be interested to hear what somebody else has to say about it. I think it's going to kind of depend on that person's personal experience and kind of where the situation is. Like, I know right now, sitting in Boone County, we haven't had any positive cases for 5 days. and our case count's really low. I know that, but before I travel somewhere, I am going to go check that information out myself.
So
And
most people will probably Google it.
Well, and I think that's also information, you know, we have people that are in constant communication with not only the Kansas City Health Department, but also the Clay County Health Department, which is where the county that we sit in. And I think that information, even supplying a link, I mean, I don't think that we hide from any of that stuff. And if we're willing to provide that information to them, it's one less thing they have to look at, one less thing they have to look for. And right now, I'm sure there are parts of Missouri that it's not a pretty picture. Maybe that's not something you want, you know, everybody to see, but they will find it. So you may as well help them out and be preemptive. So I think that's a really good question and point, Mary.
Well, and that's a good idea to have the link ready and keep it updated. And yeah, good information.
I know on our hotel call yesterday, that's kind of something the hotels asked for, because I mean, you have county orders that are more restrictive than the state orders right now. So if someone is staying here and they're from another area, like being able to communicate to them easily how they can do things here versus where they normally stay or live. Our hotels ask for a combination of electronic information links and things like that on our website, and also printed information that they could have available to their guests. So anybody else have any experience with that or been thinking
That's
about?
talking, but he's muted.
Who's talking?
Let's try this again. Yep. Sorry about that. I did want to make sure that everybody is able to see the group chat. Kirsten from Joplin jumped in and basically said, I sent care packages with Joplin swag to my tours that had canceled and to a few strong prospects, included a note saying, thinking of you and sending you love and best wishes from Joplin. And she notes that she got some nice thank yous back.
That's good. We sent
Yeah.
like personalized notes to a pretty solid list of clients as well, and they're just really basic, kind of a, you know, thinking of you, hope all is well with you, we appreciate you, and we're looking forward to seeing you again, kind of thing. We got some good responses back from those. And then I think the next step we're going to do this is send out a survey to some of those same people and kind of ask them what their needs are, kind of, you know, what their next steps are and how we can help them.
I'm looking at those that are participating on the call, and we've got some great minds on here. So I would reach out to all of you and just basically ask you to jump in as you have been working your way through a path that we have never been on. Have you encountered anything that has really surprised you? Any insight or learning that you might share with the group that you've experienced personally?
Jump in if you want. Can they hear me? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So when everything happened, at first for Visit Cape, it was right after I got back from Travel South. So a lot of us were at Travel South together. And it was really easy to reach out to those that I had met at Travel South immediately, because I had just recently had that connection with them. And honestly, I think that has really helped me with those relationships, because I was able to forge that right away. And everybody that I've spoken to wants to talk. Shocker to all of us. And so I've definitely become closer with a couple of group sales operators. But I also wanted to mention, for what you were talking about in terms of being updated with numbers of cases and things like that, within the first 2 weeks, we started a coalition here in Cape, and it's been a running group. We used to be called the Cape Communicators, and I kind of took over joining that group when Stacy left our office about 3 years ago. And we would meet regularly. Well, when this happened, we decided that we weren't getting enough communication from other people in the community, and so we joined together and we created that Keep Cape Strong website, which has all of the up-to-date information. And at the time, it really served as a tool for what businesses are open and doing like local delivery or pickup, what restaurants are doing local delivery and pickup. But then it also morphed into, resources for employment and unemployment, and then also a health page. And so that page, I actually personally go in and update the PDF for the number of cases, and I've just inserted myself in that circle of people and get the email every day with the updated number of cases. And I know in our recovery plan, Visit Cape plans on utilizing Keep Cape Strong as a tool to help visitors be aware of what has happened here, what's going on, and use it for attractions when they get up and running, like what they're putting in place to keep them safe and their visitors safe, what their policies are going to be. So we're going to kind of transform it from being that emergency kind of, oh gosh, how do we get through this, to here's what we've done and here's what we're implementing in order to keep visitors safe. And so that it's also been a great way to keep incredibly busy. So.
Others?
Hey, it's Renee, St. Louis. So, hi guys, great to see everybody. Hi Cori. So for us, one of the first things we did was kind of similar on the restaurants as Cape did. We worked with curbside, and this is when it was all coming down. So we sat in the office and entered restaurant information into a database for online for curbside pickup, delivery, that type thing. We also were having calls with our partners, Kitty and Brian Hall, our Chief Marketing Officer, and other key staff, like twice a week. So we had hotel partners, attractions, and then we had other services. And they're down to once a week now, because now we've broken off and have task force groups. And those groups are working to put together best practices. So transportation companies, what does it look like riding a bus? What does it look like riding in a ride share or a taxi or a train, whatever it is. And they are working on best practices, and those are being forwarded to our local health department to be vetted out. And then those will be brought back and be like implemented. As many of you guys know, we operate our convention center. So that's a whole nother deal. There's a whole crew working on best practices, but currently what we've been doing is moving groups and cancellations. So that was our first priority, was those clients and getting them new dates if they could, and if they couldn't, going through all that paperwork. But on the leisure travel sales side, so kind of like my little baby that I like, tour operators, as many of you know, some operators have closed their doors. They have gone out of business. That's the sad thing. It was pretty quick. But it was interesting. I was talking to a big retail tour operator out of Chicago, who I'm, like you say, Beth, who is a friend after so many years. And he's like, I'm not worried about 2020 anymore. This is done. Like, he was very upfront. He goes, I need you to answer the phone and tell me what your rates are for 22 and 23. Because he's already working forward, and that's a big retail operator. So I think for the CVBs, if you know of attractions who have closed their doors or reduced staff, if you can make sure somebody's there, or they know somebody's checking emails or, you know, checking voicemails, that's always a great thing. But like many of you, I did check-in emails with a lot of my clients during those first weeks of March. Don't respond to me, I'm just making sure you're okay. We haven't done any kind of mailings. We haven't done any kind of e-coms, the same thing, no marketing, no sales. It's really about getting on Zoom with them, having happy hours, Facebook stalking, I think Beth said earlier, that was funny. Because we do, that's what, you know, we're kind of, and they're doing the same thing with us, checking us out. But I think it's very telling. We have a lot of big conventions, like industry conventions, that are moving or canceling for this year. If you don't know, IPW, which is the largest domestic show for international out of Vegas, is canceled. And that's very telling. It's pretty cool that they got dates for next year, and Chicago decided to move to 2025. But I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of months for us. But I'm really looking forward to 2021, because it has to be better. That's all I got to say. Has to be.
Thanks, Renee. That was helpful. Legina, were you going to say something, or are you just moving around?
Well, I was going to have a drink, but I can talk. Just water. Just water. It's only 11. No, I can give you guys an update because I haven't talked to a few of you. So, you know, here at the lake, we have two different entities. We have Tri-County Lodging Association, which I am actually an employee of, and then we have the CVB, but we do partner together on a lot of stuff. Tri-County, we weren't a large staff anyway. We had 4.5, and the half got totally eliminated. I have one on furlough, and then my boss, actually, Jim, actually retired into February, right before this hit. So Rebecca and I have been working from home since March 24th. And of course, we are now doing the workload of 4 people. And with, obviously, like everybody else, we experienced budget cuts and, you know, some marketing freezes, which yours truly got to deal with all that. So this has been a huge learning experience for me, as I know it has been for all of us. But we have, at the lake, we have a couple of different things here going on. The CVB in partnership, we have 3 chambers, because the lake is spread out over several counties. We have 3 chambers, and they have put together a couple different things that they're working on. We're doing business videos. We have 39 businesses, like the owners have gone on video, and just, again, stay safe, stay healthy. We're here when you're ready to come visit. So I think we have 39 of those so far that they have done, and we're doing that with our team. The CVB had to go down at one point to a staff of 3, but they are eligible. We're eligible for the PPP. So I think as of next week, all of our staff will be back working at the CVB. TCLA, we're a 501c6, so we're not eligible for that. So it'll just be Rebecca and I for several more months. We have had some group movement, and I don't mean just on canceling and rescheduling, which the good news of that, we've been able to retain about 90% of our business just rescheduled at this point. So knock on some wood that is still happening. But we have had some groups booking, like new business, even for summer. We'll see if that holds. I booked a group for July, booked one for June on that one, but we'll see if that holds. So just excited to see that. We feel like we're in a good position that we have so many great outdoor things going on here. And I'm actually preparing our rollout campaign right now, and we're obviously going to do a huge focus on our outdoor venues for family reunions, outdoor weddings, that type of thing. Keeping in touch with hotels, you guys have mentioned, I had a Zoom call yesterday with our group properties, and doing a lot of the same things you guys have mentioned and that Cori was talking about is, you know, let's talk about what we're doing to enhance our, you know, cleaning experience and to make the guests feel comfortable when they come here. And, you know, it's things you get, you know, you don't even think about. You know, Cori mentioned the buffets, but, you know, what about, you know, if you have a group at one of your hotels that has the elevator, like, you know, who's pressing the buttons, you know, that type of thing. So just, you have to think about outside the box about just everybody's comfort level is good. So we're just having those discussions and just trying to stay positive. And we're curious to see how Memorial Day is for us. That's usually a pretty big rollout for the summer for us. So we're going to see. We've had, I was going to sit outside on my deck, but they're mowing our, mowing our subdivision. We've had a lot of boat activity. We have a lot of second homeowners who decided to quarantine at the lake versus where they normally live. So the gas boat sales has been really good the last couple months, and the weather's been good. So, but going on my deck on a weekend, even this past weekend, it was almost like a summer weekend to see all the boat activity. We do have some lakeside restaurants that are doing the curbside, boatside pickup, so that's been good. So we're just trying to stay positive and just get, like you guys all said, everything changes daily. So we're keeping in touch with our local health officials. We actually have our hospital is going to be at our board meeting next week to give updates to us, just so we're prepared with that information. Because I have clients ask me, you know, how things look, what we're doing about this and that. So like you guys say, it's just being prepared and being able to answer those questions as best you can to make everybody feel comfortable being in your location.
Legina, it's Mary. Tim was on a call yesterday regarding the lake, and he said in Illinois, they're requiring only 2 people per boat. So he was interested in getting more clarification for Missouri's rules. So that will be interesting.
I'm an Illinois resident and a boater, so let me chime in there. Yes, it is 2 people in a boat maximum. Doesn't matter if you have 5 people in your family and you all shelter together. So there is people going to the governor, Pritzker, to clarify and hopefully change that, because it makes no sense. But yeah, 2 people. So the driver and 1 other person. So
Yeah, we don't have that right now here in Missouri. It's you know, it needs to be your immediate family that you've been sheltering with. But no, there's no limitations on how many are in the boat right now. They have had put something out, like obviously they don't want people, you know, we have the famous party cove and where people go cove out together. And obviously there's going to be restraints, I think, on that this summer to not have all the boats lined up together. But we'll see how that rolls out here in the next couple of weeks before Memorial Day.
We had a couple of comments. Jolene had written, I'm writing thinking of you note cards as we sit here today. She wants everybody to know that she's thinking of all of you too. Kirsten also chimed in to say, we are also working on a survey in Joplin, going out to folks that have requested Joplin information in the last year, asking things like, when will you feel safe to travel? Who will you travel with? How far will you go? What types of lodging activities feel safe? Have you changed your transportation plans? We're trying to figure out when we will see visitors again and what those visits will look like. Dawn shouted out to Elisa, well done, that's awesome. And then Bob Frohoff shared industry conventions are canceling in part due to many potential attendees dealing with travel bans from their employers. So we're coming up on our 55-minute mark. We'll take it to an hour here. If you all have any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And if not, we'll wrap up, but want to definitely give you all time to chime in.
Just real quick from Branson and the hotel world. I was on an industry call with the bank industry yesterday, Heritage Club International, and they had talked about in the hotel world, and I don't know if we've seen this yet, but when someone utilizes a hotel room, some hotels are taking them out of service for 48 hours before they come back in. So it can, for one of the tour operators, he says that just hugely affects availability, you know, in times where it's really busy, you know, like in Branson for Christmas. So, you know, when you're taking a number of your inventory and basically cutting it out for 2 days for cleaning. So, you know, the hotels that we have are all franchise based. And so we have some franchise recommendations on that coming down on how we're going to deal with some things as well. But just to also say, Branson, we've got a task force trying to understand how to open back up safely, you know, theaters, selling tickets every other row, you know, with seats between certain parties. That's going to really limit, you know, obviously capacity and revenue. But the other thing that I think, if anybody has any thoughts on this, Renee, you said something about transportation, but yesterday on that call was like motor coach travel, and how that's just a huge factor in anybody traveling in the near future as a group, because of maybe limitations on capacity, but the coach isn't going to charge half price to a tour company, you know, in order to do that. And then you've got states that I'm going from one state to another, and some states are still in a shelter-in-place kind of scenario. As I'm traveling through with the motor coach, where do I stop for food or overnight? So there was a lot of concerns brought up yesterday with regards to motor coach travel.
And Wes, this is Renee. I heard that too about the coaches. Unless all states open, so they have to go from one state to get to another state. If you can't have restaurants and attractions, you know, you're just going to march the people into a hotel, let them stay overnight, and then march them back out in the morning. It's just not going to be feasible. And the pricing point, like you say, on the motor coaches, not to say the operators, because they have been sitting empty for how long, the coach operators, you know, they got 10, 15, 80 buses sitting in their, you know, their lots, and they haven't been run for over a month. They might make deals at first, but it's not going to be right away.
Yeah.
One of the little things that, you know, somebody mentioned yesterday on it, or maybe it was the day before on a call, I guess kind of thinking in that same line with, you know, hotel rooms having to be out of commission for 48 hours. When we open the park, one of the things that we are going to have to do is have restroom attendants. And we have to allow one person in at a time. The restroom attendant goes in, cleans the bathroom, cleans whatever stall, and then they can let somebody else in. And I just, I mean, it's just things like that where the lines and you know, that kind of thing is just going to be, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how all of it ends up working.
That brings up an interesting point. I worked with our local health department on finding a hotel to be used as an isolation quarantine facility. So I learned a whole lot about practices and safety. And you have science and you have perception. And we have got to deal with people's perceptions because they don't necessarily accept the science until you can work through the perceptions. And even in turning around and working with our own hotel community and sharing with them the documents that were prepared by the Director of Health, the county medical director, so on and so forth. I had so many misconceptions and fallacies and things to wade through just with the hoteliers. And then you take and turn around and look at what perceptions the public has. And that we have got to make sure our hoteliers are educated, or our partners, no matter whether they're hoteliers or not. My experience in this instance with hotels, we make sure that the message that they're sending out is correct, because then they have to turn around and deal with the public's perception. So, you know, cleaning and like our own medical director only recommended a 24-hour wait time between cleaning that room after someone had stayed in. But we have hotels that are 20, 48, 72 hours, same here. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and the level of communication that needs to be done and the need for education is going to just be constant and almost overwhelming.
Well, we're coming up on 11:15. We've been going for an hour. On behalf of Cori and Beth, I would just like to say thank you all so much for taking time out of, I guess, what are extraordinarily unusual circumstances, and how you're spending your days and times right now. But we're going to be talking about trying to do more of this type of thing, and really how we can get everybody together and just information share, have good presentations, but good open discussion as well. So Beth and Cori, thank you for leading us through this morning's presentation. To each one of the rest of you, great to see so many faces. And so I would just say, take care of yourselves, stay well, and look for information coming up about possible future presentations and workshops that we'll be doing. So take care, everyone.